Hey everyone, as a local historian and storyteller, I am absolutely thrilled to welcome you to this explainer. We're currently researching and creating a series on the forgotten history of Raleigh, North Carolina. And today, we're jumping right into a fascinating hometown mystery. We're going to explore the story of a man known as the Tailor of Reconstruction and uncover a wild historical contradiction that's actually kept people arguing for over a century.
Let me hook you right out of the gate with a quick trivia question. Which U.S. president was born in Raleigh, North Carolina? Now, if you guessed Andrew Johnson, congratulations, you're totally right. But, as you'll see throughout this explainer, when it comes to local history, things are rarely that simple. There's a major historical twist to this hometown fact, and it has everything to do with exactly where he took his very first breath.
Okay, let's dive into this. We've got two completely different addresses, 123 Fayetteville Street on one side and 1 Mimosa Street on the other. Down in Raleigh, there are literally two different historical markers sitting in these two locations. And here's the real kicker. They both claim to be the exact birthplace of President Andrew Johnson. No way, right?
Seeing these conflicting markers downtown isn't just about a couple of misplaced plaques. It actually represents 200 years of a city actively arguing with itself. It's the exact same passionate, stubborn instinct you've probably felt when locals argue over the true origin stories of, say, regional pizza styles or Carolina barbecue. Everyone has their receipts, but as we'll see, sometimes those receipts just don't match up.
All right, let's get into Section 1, From Tailor to President, An Unlikely Ascent.
To truly understand why this birthplace mystery matters so much, we got to step back and look at the macro history of Andrew Johnson's incredible rags-to-riches life story. It starts in the year 1808. Johnson was born dirt poor right here in Raleigh. The poverty his family faced was immense. So much so that Andrew Johnson never went to school a single day in his entire life. Really, think about that for a second. A future president of the United States with absolutely zero formal education.
So the absolutely crucial point here is how he overcame that. He taught himself to read while working as a tailor's apprentice. This early grit completely defined him, and it's exactly where the moniker, the Tailor of Reconstruction, comes from. He quite literally stitched his own education and future together by hand, working his way up from the absolute bottom of the socioeconomic ladder.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because the momentum of his career is just staggering. Step 1, he becomes a local alderman. Step 2, he fights his way all the way to the U.S. Senate. Step 3, he's chosen as Abraham Lincoln's vice president. And finally, Step 4, following the tragic assassination of Lincoln in 1865, this former illiterate tailor's apprentice becomes the president of the United States. It's a wildly improbable ascent to the highest office in the land.
Which brings us to Section 2, Vetoes and Impeachment, a Contradictory Legacy.
Now, Johnson's time in the highest office was deeply turbulent, marking a stark contrast to his inspiring rise. Impartially speaking, despite his remarkable journey from a penniless tailor, his presidency is historically defined by deep controversy. He vetoed crucial Reconstruction-era civil rights protections and clashed heavily with Congress over the post-Civil War direction of the country. This intense political conflict ultimately resulted in his impeachment. He survived removal from office by just a single vote, leaving behind a highly polarizing and contradictory legacy.
Moving on to Section 3, Raleigh's Disputed Memory, Missing Receipts.
Let's bring this story back to the streets of Raleigh today and solve the mystery of why the city has those two conflicting historical markers. And this brilliantly illustrates the chaos of urban history. It basically comes down to three main factors. First, the city of Raleigh grew rapidly around the area. Second, the original, humble Johnson home was physically moved, at least once, maybe even twice, to accommodate that growth. And third, well, as time passed, nobody kept perfect track of which lot was the actual original location. Because of this missing paperwork, local historians have debated the true birthplace for well over a century.
What we're really talking about here is historical memory. That's how a city physically records, processes, and sometimes argues over its complex past. When you walk downtown and see these two markers, you aren't just looking at bronze plaques. You're looking at a living time capsule of a city actively grappling with its own memory. It shows us that history isn't always a settled fact. Sometimes it's an ongoing physical conversation.
And finally, Section 4, Explore NC Uncovered. Discover your local history.
Now that you know the secret behind these competing markers, I completely challenge you to step out and explore this hometown contradiction for yourself. And here's exactly how you can do that this weekend. First, take our self-guided Capital and Power tour. The two Johnson markers are actually stops number 3 and 9. When you get there, snap a photo at each and decide for yourself which one you think is the real deal. To make this super easy, visit ncuncovered.com. We've got a fantastic, free GPS-guided map right there on the site featuring over 6,000 historical markers across the state. It's the perfect tool to plan incredibly fun summer day trips and really dive into a region's hidden stories.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Raleigh's history, much like the incredible and contradictory life of the Tailor of Reconstruction, is full of receipts that just don't quite match up. There are mysteries hiding in plain sight all around us. So which forgotten story will you uncover this weekend? Get out there, explore the map, and keep learning.